is that you are not counted among men of value. In fact, in certain countries, you can't even manage a company. You are barred from taking critical decisions that concern the management of a company, not to talk about the management of an economy.
Also in the bulletin, Court of Appeal throws out Secretary to the Board of Trustees of the National Cathedral, Reverend Kusi Boateng's suit seeking a reversal of the High Court dismissal of a contempt case against Member of Parliament for Notong Samuel Okujetu Ablakwa and slaps him with 3,000 Ghana cedis cost. We'll hear from the Notong MP who has welcomed the decision and accused Reverend Kusi Boateng of deliberately frustrating his legislative duties.
And have you noticed that he never comes to court? We have work to do. We have parliament to go to. We have parliamentary committees. We have our constituents to take care of. And he keeps filing appeals upon appeals upon appeals when the matters are very clear. You have lost in the lower courts.
And later, Locked Up Investment Forum labels investment in Ghana's financial sector as suicidal as they urge Ghanaians to explore other viable options.
You cannot save money in any bank because all the banks are not trusted. All the banks are not trusted. We don't have any trusted bank now. So it's not good to put your money in bank, to do investment, to do anything with it.
Details of these stories and many more, including sports, are coming up in the next 30 minutes. Stay tuned in. Star News is coming to you live on Ultimate 106.9 FM in Kumasi, Empire 102.7 FM in Takrady, Zeps 95.9 FM in Zebila, Nissim 100.1 FM in Lamshao, My Star Radio in the USA. Also live on Facebook on Star 1035 FM and on starfm.com.gh around the world. This is Star 103.5 FM. Star News. Informed, in-depth, in touch. You're welcome once again to the Starr Midday News on Star 103.5 FM here in Accra, coming to you live from our studios at the Platinum Place. My name is Naa Dedei Tettey. To the details of our stories now. And the minority in Parliament has criticized the Finance Minister, Dr. Amin Adam, for celebrating what they call mediocrity after announcing the completion of the debt restructuring process. Now, ongoing in Parliament at the moment is an address by the minority spokesperson on finance, Dr. Adongo, who has been elaborating more on the position of the minority, and they are also disputing the finance minister's claim that the current administration's economy is outperforming that of the Eswal Mahama administration. Have a listen to excerpts of that press briefing currently ongoing in Parliament.
But the finance minister, when he announced this from wherever he is, and when he visited, I think he was in London, was very bullish and indicated that that was a remarkable success that needed to be celebrated. And actually indicated that on the basis of that, they have managed the economy better than the NDC did. First, I want to tell the finance minister to stop celebrating the disgrace that they have brought this country. You applied for bankruptcy. And then they realized that the only way they could help you was to grant you a bankruptcy certificate. So you are now hanging this bankruptcy certificate around your neck and you are celebrating that. When you are bankrupt and you are granted bankruptcy, what it means is that you are not counted among men of value. In fact, in certain countries, you can't even manage a company. You are barred from taking critical decisions that concern the management of a company, not to talk about the management of an economy. So for you to have achieved this disgraceful feat, you should be quiet and hope that this will pass without everybody knowing. But of course, we know the kind of people we are dealing with, that even when they have destroyed our economy and they have embarrassed us and turned all of us into men of straw, they will not go away quietly, but they will seek to speak. For those of you who are very familiar with our hospital system, and because I'm a member of parliament, I deal with most of these matters. When people go to the hospital either they are admitted and they are unable to pay their bills, or they are supposed to undergo a procedure or a surgery, and the cost is so high they cannot pay, there is always a welfare department within the hospital. So you go to the welfare department and report your case and make an application, and the welfare department will issue a letter to you to go and solicit for support from public spirited people to be able to go through that surgery. That letter will call it to whom it may concern. So Ghana now has become the global child of welfare state.
So you had the excerpts of that press briefing by the minority in Parliament. It was addressed by the minority spokesperson on finance, Isaac Adongo. There, let's go over the telephone line and speak to our parliamentary affairs correspondent, Ibrahim Alassan, for more on this one. So Ibrahim, excerpts of that address we brought to our listeners from the NDC MPs is that the administration, the finance minister should stop celebrating mediocrity.
Exactly so. And that if the country has defaulted in the payment of its debt, reason why it has to enter into a plea agreement with its creditors for some of the debt to be waived, payment period to be extended. It should be an episode of shame and not that of celebration. He doesn't end there. He also talks about the fact that if you are a businessman, a businesswoman, you are a company, and you are in need of dollars for your business, do not listen to the finance minister. Go to the market and get the dollars. Because no amount of money, aside a little over $300 million that's coming from the IMF for the third tranche of the bailout, no money is coming from anywhere else to show up the city. And that even with the IMF money, ingrained in the agreement is the fact that the money will be kept at the country's reserves. And that is because the IMF wants the country to be able to pay its debt in dollars when these debts mature in future. And so the money that is coming as a third tranche of the IMF bailout would not be used in shoring up the city because it will not be in the open market. Again, it talks about the directive by the president to the finance minister to release in excess of 1.5 billion for payment of the locked up funds. He says, as a country, we've been here before, that in 2021, in fact, before 2020, the 2020 election, the government budgeted over 5 billion cedis for payment of these same investors. That did not happen. And what happened was that a few people were called and payments were made before the elections. And he envisages that's exactly what will happen this time around, that the money, first of all, will be inadequate to pay everybody. So just a few people will be selected and be paid just because December 7 is around the corner.
And in relation to that, when we engaged the convener for the customers of the defunct Black Shield or Gold Coast fund investment, their argument is that Parliament should take an interest in this and probe all the previous allocations made for the payment of these locked up investments. They say that usually, like Isaac Adogo was saying, an amount is allocated, but they do not benefit from it. Is Parliament ready to take up such a challenge?
Well, Parliament has actually dealt with this matter. That committee was chaired by the Starr Midday MP Dogati. The report of that particular committee is what has been awaited here in the plenary. Of course, the committee engaged players in the sector, including the customers of the defunct Gold Coast Fund Management, executives of SEC, and the Securities and Exchange Commission, and then Finance Ministry, officials of the Finance Ministry as well, were all engaged. What is left is the committee's report. But of course, the assurance from the committee chairman was that his engagement with the Finance Ministry and, for that matter, the presidency, points to the fact that something was going to be done. And then I'm sure that something is the directive that 1.5 billion Ghana cedis should be released, which sector players argue will be woefully inadequate to pay everybody. But of course, the assurance is that if the vice president should win, the assurance from the finance minister, then the compensation will be topped up. Isaac Adongo actually laughed this particular assertion by the finance minister off when it was brought to his attention, and that The problem was created by this government. Why on earth will anybody believe this government to get these people solutions to the mess they themselves created?
Thank you very much. Ibrahim Alassan is our parliamentary affairs correspondent. This is still the Starr Midday News on Star 103.5 FM. Let's turn our attention now to the courts. And the Court of Appeal has thrown out the Secretary to the Board of Trustees of the National Cathedral, Reverend Kusi Boateng's suit seeking a reversal of the High Court dismissal of a contempt case against the Member of Parliament for North Tong, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa. The court has also awarded a cost of 3,000 Ghana cedis against the Secretary of the Board of the Trustees of the National Cathedral over the failed attempt. Well, the panel of three, chaired by the Judicial Secretary, Justice Cynthia Pamela A. Cranting, said the ground of the appeal does not, or grounds of the appeal do not comply with the rules of the court as required. Let's go by the telephone line and speak to our legal affairs correspondent, Mutala Inusa, for more on this one. Mutala joined us over the telephone line. So, Mutala, first of all, beyond the panel saying that the grounds of appeal do not comply with the rules of the court as required, what other grounds did the panel cite for the dismissal of this appeal?
Well, what the three-member panel of the Court of Appeal is saying is that if you look at the rules that allow parties to file processes or to challenge High Court decisions, the rules are very clear. You need to satisfy all the rules, and the court is of the considered view that those rules, those processes have not been satisfied. For that matter, those grounds that the applicant is seeking or is asking the court to make the determination that the High Court judge did not follow law to come to that determination. What the panel decided over by Justice Cynthia Pamela Cranting is saying is that it is not as its way. It doesn't comply with the rules of the Court of Appeal.
Now, Mutala, what has been the reaction of both camps?
So, clearly, the applicant or the person, Reverend Kusi Boateng, wasn't present in court. His lawyers wouldn't offer any reaction in relation to the decision of the Court of Appeal. But of course, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa has been telling us that he's happy with the decision of the Court of Appeal, and he's only making the point that, look, somebody like Kwabena Edu-Gyamfi, who was also known as Reverend Victor Kusi Boateng, one person going by two names, is working free, is actually impeding on the processes of work because he is a parliamentarian. He has to leave parliament to come to court, all because of somebody who is holding two names and nothing has happened to him yet.
We will hear from Okudzeto Ablakwa on this subject in a bit. But before the judges could come to this conclusion, which is to throw out this particular suit, there were some objections. There was an objection that was raised by the lawyers of Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa. What became of that issue?
Okay, so now the two things happened in relation to the objection raised by lawyers of Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, led by lawyer Thaddeus Sorry. The court went ahead to overrule or reject that particular objection raised and said that the panel was fit, the panel was properly constituted, and also defied the allegation made against the Chief Justice to ask it were and panel or constitute the panel. What they say was that there's no evidence before the court to substantiate that particular allegation or those allegations made. And if any reasonable observer is sitting elsewhere, there's no way that particular observer will be able to pinpoint and say that this panel would be biased to the parties in the case or to Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa. On that score, they are saying that the panel was properly constituted by the Chief Justice, and so they overruled that and proceeded to rule on the substantive matter, which effectively the court said that Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa and his lawyers have succeeded in asking the court to strike out those grounds that the applicant had come to court by way of seeking an appeal.
Now, Mutala, hold the line briefly for me. I want us to briefly listen to Okudzeto Ablakwa, and then I will return to you to give us an update in relation to the Hobson Adoye case.
We are glad that the appeal on the contempt case has been dismissed by the appeals court. It appears that this is the only country where somebody who has engaged in a double identity scam will be wasting the time of members of parliament who are carrying out their constitutional mandate of oversight. That's all we are doing. That's all we are doing. And is this a fair price to pay for carrying out your constitutional mandate? And have you noticed that he never comes to court? We have work to do. We have parliament to go to. We have parliamentary committees. We have our constituents to take care of. We have other constitutional obligations as members of parliament. And he keeps filing appeals upon appeals upon appeals when the matters are very clear. You have lost in the lower courts. Judges have been very, very decisive in their decisions.
So that is the Member of Parliament for Norton, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa. Murtala, let's quickly look at the Hobson Adoye case. The Attorney General has taken over?
Absolutely, Naa Dedei. What the Circuit Court at Dansuman has been informed earlier today is that the case docket has been sent to the Office of the Attorney General for advice. Consequently, the case involving Hobson Adoye, in which he has been charged for publication of false news. In fact, the first time that he appeared before the court was in May, May 23, and the case was adjourned today for prosecution to file their necessary processes for case management conference to be held. But today, when the case was called, Chief Inspector Wanda indicated that the duplicate case docket has been sent to the Office of the Attorney General for advice. Consequently, the matter has been adjourned to July 31, and July 31, Naa Dedei, is the last day of the court season as far as the judiciary is concerned, where they will be embarking on legal vacation. But that do not affect the activities at the lower courts. Of course, some of the courts will be sitting. But in relation to Hobson Adoye, the AG has taken over the case docket. The court has been formed. The case has been adjourned to July 31.
Thank you very much. Murtala Inusa is our legal affairs correspondent. You're still listening to the Starr Midday News on Starr 103.5 FM.
Save money in any bank because all the banks are not trusted. All the banks are not trusted.
Well, members of the Locked Up Investment Forum are continuing with their picketing at the Ministry of Finance. As you may be aware, they do that every Wednesday to pile pressure on government to pay their locked up investments. Well, today, one of them who spoke to Star News tells us that it is risky to now invest with any bank in the country. Have a listen.
It's the same. Nothing has changed because I'm not be able to go to the hospital, so nothing has changed.
So how are you coping?
It's not easy, you know about this economic now. It's not easy at all. It's not easy.
You made mention that you are the one that take care of your mother, and since your money has been locked, you are unable to take care of her. How is she also faring now?
She's not feeling well even. She's not even feeling well at all. She's not feeling well.
Friends, or how do you feel?
I've been engaging them, but now everybody don't have it. The moment you call, they see your call, they won't pick. You call and call, nobody is ready to help because you can't blame them. They are also in difficulties, so you can't blame them.
You had the one of the victims there, Georgina Tenge, speaking to Calvin Powell, who is monitoring that picketing for us. He's joined us over the telephone line. Sincere apologies that the music in the background seemed to have been drowning their voices. Now, Calvin, what is the situation? Calvin, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Yes, what is the situation on the ground today?
Currently, as I speak, the forum members have dispersed to their various places about. But this morning, they started the protest from NDK Financial Services, which is one of the 4 distressed financial institutions in question. And they marched through the principal street, that's Asabis Highway, through the court complex, and entered the finance drive onto the finance institution, the finance ministry. So their message that they keep preaching is government should declare these financial institutions that are distressed, insolvent, and pay off their investment. So one thing that came up today is that as the finance minister announced that they've been able to save some $8 billion from the external bondholders
discussion that they've had over the weekend, they are now calling that, okay, you've made mention that some funds have been released for the banks that were collapsed some years back to be paid. So the same way, they are also calling that from this 8 billion that has been saved from the debt restructuring, an amount of it should be allocated for them so that they will also be paid as some of them are unable to foot their bills, their hospital bills in particular, and the fees of their wards.
All right, Calvin, thank you very much with that update there. This is still the Starr Midday News on Star 103.5 FM from here in the Greater Accra region. Let's go to the Ashanti region, specifically the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital, where doctors at the oncology department that embarked on an industrial action strike are expected to resume work today after a meeting with management. As you may be aware, you may recall, management of the hospital yesterday directed the striking doctors to report to duty today by 8 a.m. or face disciplinary action. Now, let's go over the telephone line and speak to our correspondent in the region, Isaac Bediako Justice, for the very latest as to whether the return to the department has anything to do with a threat issued by the management of the hospital yesterday. Isaac, so as of now, do we know whether the doctors are at post after meeting with management today?
So after the meeting with management, the doctors gave assurance to management that they're going to call off the strike, but they have to formally write a letter to the management and also announce to their patients who come from near and far for treatment that indeed they've resumed to work and that they can come for medical treatment from today going. So that is what currently management is waiting for. But for official or informally, they have communicated to management that they have ended their strike. So they are just waiting for them to do the follow the official procedure by writing to management. That is what is left at the moment.
And so, do we still have patients there lined up waiting to be seen?
Yes, patients were still there. At the time I was leaving, the waiting room was full of patients. It was only the consultants that were assisting them, and those who were to come and take their medication, the nurses were also around to assist them. But for treatment and other things, and also having opportunity to meet doctors for review and all those things, those treatments were not going on. And so that was what some of them were disappointed in, because they have traveled near and far and they come to hear this and they were not aware that the doctors were on strike. So those are some of the things that was happening. But later after the meeting, some of them also heard that the doctors have called off the strike and that they will come and give them treatment. That changed their mood and they were excited to hear this.
All right, thank you very much. Isaac Bediako Justice is our Ashanti regional correspondent. Shortly, we'll bring you the very latest in the world of sports. But while we wait to do that, we can bring you some other stories happening at the moment. Well, today happens to be the International Day against drug abuse. We will get the details of that in a bit. You're still listening to the Starr Midday News on Star 103.5 FM. Well, the Mental Health Authority has disclosed that Ghana is facing a growing challenge with drug abuse, especially among the youth. The authority says this concern undermines public health, safety and socio-economic development. The recent trend indicates a consistent rise in drug-related incidents and health crises, underscoring the urgent need for robust preventative efforts and intervention strategies. Well, data from the District Health Information Management System has consistently captured mental disorders due to alcohol and other psychoactive disorders among the top 10 causes of mental health outpatients attendance. Well, in 2023, a total of 3,765 cases of mental disorders due to alcohol were attended to. Let's get some more details from the Ghana Medical Association in relation to this particular issue.
It's a very worrying trend. That's why we are using this opportunity to raise awareness about the impacts that it's going to have on our society. And like the statement said, alcohol is the most common substance that's used, but we also see cannabis, we also see tramadol, we see other opioid or heroin, cocaine, other substances that are used in addition to alcohol.
You had there Abigail Harding. She is the member of the communications team of the Ghana Mental Health Authority. I said Ghana Medical Association. It's rather Ghana Mental Health Authority. Let's now bring you sports. And Jones Haji is here. Good afternoon to you, Jones. What's in sports?
All right, so let's start off from WAFA. And so WAFA's quest to return to top flight football took a detour after their Division 2 Middle League Round 2 game ended in a 1-1 draw against Sons of Thunder in the Volta Regional Division 2 Middle League. They have a chance to go top in Group B when they face Leon FC tomorrow. Meanwhile, Inter Allies, who are also looking to return to the Division 1 League after a very long time, would play against Petue Diamond FC later today in a game that could see them qualify for the finals on Sunday. Now to the Euros. This evening, Slovakia would play Romania. Ukraine would take on Belgium for Group E at 4 p.m. And then at exactly 7 p.m. would see Georgia take on Portugal. Czech Republic would play Turkey at 7 p.m. And coach of the Portuguese side, Roberto Martinez, says his team are not favorites yet to win the tournament.
Favorites in this tournament, my experience tells me, you're talking about the European Championship, there are more than 10 winners. There is a lot of small details that allow you to progress into the finals, and I don't think there are favorites. There are candidates, clearly. There are a group of national teams that the players that they have, they got a level that probably they need to cope with expectations, and they can cope with expecting to be fine the tournament. But I feel that Portugal, we are in that group.
Right, so that will be all for sports. My name is Jones Aji.
Thank you very much, Jones, with the very latest in the world of sports. Let's quickly take a quick trip to Kenya and bring you something in relation to that. Well, the executive director for the International Development Economics Associates, Charles Abugri, has called on the youth in the country to emulate their colleagues in Kenya in protesting over the poor economic conditions in the country. The protests in Kenya, which reached the Parliament House in Kenya on Tuesday, saw parts of the building being set ablaze. 5 Ghanaian MPs who went on a study visit to the country were caught up in the chaos, but were subsequently evacuated to their hotels and are now very safe. Well, security analyst Adib Sani has described the agitations in Kenya as worrying, but likens the economic situation to what is happening in Ghana as well.
Well, what is happening is quite worrying. The situation is not very different from what we are experiencing in Ghana. Young people are without jobs. They are complaining about the high cost of living. The taxes is also choking, just like we had it with the e-levy and other forms of...
You had their security analyst, Adib Sani. And that'll be it for today's edition of the Starr Midday News on Star 103.5 FM. For more news, do log on to starfm.com.gh. My name is Naa Dedei Tettey. Thank you so much for your company. Have a good afternoon.